good evening and welcome everyone and our audience. We're not used to an audience of over one, but sometimes 20 or 30, but that is rare. And we're glad to have all of you here tonight, and particularly the students, of course, that are with us. We do have a dignitary in the audience that outranks even the principal, and that is the president of the student body, Madison Tracy, is with us tonight. And I think Madison wants to say a few words. So where are you, Madison?
We just want, on behalf of the student body of Central Magnet School, we just want to thank you all for having a meeting here for the Health and Education Committee, and we hope you enjoyed your tour. Thank you.
Thank you, Madison.
Thank you.
Couple of things. First, I guess before we begin formally looking at these items here, first of all, I want to tell you who these folks are, and this is the Health and Education Committee, which handles just exactly that in Rutherford County. The money that funds those items, and this committee starts in those general areas. And there are 7 or 6 commissioners on every committee in the county, and there are 7 on this one, and at least 6 of them are absolutely excellent. And Mrs. Cook at the far end of the table has been on this committee since I've been a county commissioner, and long before that. She's from Laverne and watches Laverne closely, let me assure you. Rhonda Allen is next, coming toward me, and Ms. Allen is commissioner, and she's been on planning for a long time, and she's serving her first term as commissioner, and she is from the Smyrna area. Mr. Will Jordan is from the Leanna area, Rutherford County, Walter Hill generally, and is also on the Budget Committee and has been a commissioner. I think this is 8 years, I believe, of Commissioner Jordan right now, something like that. Mr. Soriano is from the Braideville Pike area in the southern part of the county and is serving his first term. Mr. Brad Turner is from the Smyrna area, and he is serving his first term and has been on this committee now for 3 years. And this is Mr. Jeff Phillips, whose commission district is almost right behind us here. Doesn't include Central Magnet, but it comes really close. It covers NTSU. I'm Jeff Jordan. I'm a chairman, at least until when this meeting is over. They may remove me, but until then, I guess I'll probably serve as chairman. I'm Cason Lane, Riverdale Scales Elementary School area. And this lady right here is the most important one up here. She keeps up with all the minutes and my mistakes and things of that nature, and that's Miss Becky Shelton, and is one of the terrific executive secretaries in this county. We have many dignitaries here. I don't know if we have any school board members here or not. I think some of them are coming a little later, and I'll get to that in just a minute. Our mayor is here, Mayor Ernest Burgess, who attends almost every meeting that we have, and I think we'll have some school board members here, which gets me to Mr. Gill. We certainly want to send our congratulations to our former director, Mr. Harry Gill, who's having a gymnasium named for him tonight at Smyrna High School. Maybe you saw it in yesterday's paper, and the ceremony is going on as we speak. We're sorry to miss it, but this is our regular meeting night, and we were unable to change, and they were as well. But congratulations certainly go out to Mr. Gill. That is a much-deserved honor, and our committee sends out our congratulations to him. We want to thank Principal Ash, who's sitting in the back, for the tours tonight. We had about an hour tour from about 4:30 to about 5:20, and I guess we went in just about every department and every building, and I know the committee expressed their thanks, and I expressed mine publicly. We enjoyed it, Mr. Ash, very, very much. Committee, am I leaving out anything that we need to do before we get started? If not, I need to have a motion on the approval of the minutes, if I could, please.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Cook, Ms. Allen, thank you. A second. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
We're going to go, since Ms. Garrett is here, we will do the health department report first, if that's all right with the committee. Ms. Garrett, I know there's a lot of talk about the flu, and I'm sure everybody in this audience has had their flu shot.
That's right.
And everybody up on the stage too. But go ahead with your report, please, and thank you.
Yes, sir. So I have sent electronically the
report for the month of December. And as you can see, our immunization rate was up quite a bit when the flu vaccine rush started happening. And we also were able to offer some free vaccine during that month, so those numbers jumped up quite a bit. We did some outreach partnering with Middle Tennessee Medical Center and their mobile health unit, and we went to several different places in Laverne and Smyrna to outreach to some people for flu vaccination. So it was a very good turnout. I think we've done at least 600 out in the community, besides the ones we did at the senior citizen centers at the beginning when we first started.
That's awesome.
Are we hoping, do we think that most of the hardest part of the flu season is past us now as far as people getting immunizations, and that flu virus really hopefully starting to taper off?
We start to see a peak January and February, so
we still might
we
get
still
a
could,
lot of people
yeah,
coming in and
exactly.
getting
So we still are recommending flu vaccination. I do have some for children right now at the health department. We're trying to get some more adult in, but right now we're out of adult. I expect to get some within a couple days, so people can just check back with us.
Right.
But we do have that for the children under 18. It's what they classify as a child for that vaccine.
What's the cost?
It's $0.
There you go.
My favorite kind,
That's
right?
right.
So you don't charge anymore?
No, right.
Do you have a website or anything where people can check to see if, when the vaccine's available, or do they just have to call?
They can call. We have access to the county's Facebook. We can post things on that, the county's Facebook account. So that's another way we could do it, or we could put it onto the county's webpage. They're very good about doing that on their homepage when we have events and stuff.
Will you divvy it up between Murfreesboro and Smyrna, or how will you do that?
We order for both, so they come in separately to both. Right now, they're out also in Smyrna for the adult.
Okay.
There are some places in town that still have it, but ours is out for right now.
Okay.
I guess the silver lining is people are at least going, it's out for a reason. So
Yes,
it's good people are taking care of themselves.
exactly. Getting lots of vaccinations. And our overall numbers for December were very good, and for the year to date, very good as well, right where we expected them. Up a little in Smyrna, down a little bit in Murfreesboro, right what we expect, so.
This particular flu is bad, isn't it?
It hit us early, and so that makes it seem a little worse, but it is definitely the normal type of flu that we see, but we are seeing that people got hit earlier, so it feels like it's worse because it started so much earlier this season. But it does seem to help. The vaccination is the number one thing we can do to prevent the spread of flu. It's not 100%. You can still get flu when you get the flu vaccination. We all know that, but it will lessen your sickness period. Some people with flu who haven't had a vaccine can be out 2 weeks. It can even in elderly and young and sick can cause death. So it is a serious disease, and any little thing you can do, vaccination, washing your hands, staying home when you're sick, those are the things we recommend.
Any other questions from Ms. Garrett?
Move to approve the report.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Phillips and Commissioner Turner, thank you.
This is okay.
All in favor of approving the report, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and of course there is none. And Ms. Garrett, you have some other?
Yes, sir. One that I didn't get till late, so it didn't get electronically sent to you guys, paper in front of you. Every year we have an agreement with the state of Tennessee as the county on funds, and this was all approved in your budget. This is just the state 6 to 8 months behind contract that they need to have signed. So we do this every year, you know, about 6 months into the budget, it's time to get the contract signed for the state. So I need your permission to advance it. This is all, Ms. Nolan looked at it, it's all the same as what's in our budget. It's just needs to go through the formal process now.
Appreciate a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Jordan, thank you. Ms. Cook, thank you. I believe it was Ms. Cook down there. All in favor of approving this, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Of course, there is none. Ms. Garrett, anything else?
No, sir.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so very,
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. See you next month.
Committee, if you would look at your electronic gadget there, which name escapes me, that is where the community care report is. And we do not have a paper copy of that report this month. And Ms. Cook is going to comment a minute or two, but I believe, and of course the mayor is chairman of the committee, I believe we're in pretty good shape there. Ms. Cook, please.
We're in good shape. Everything's going well. The construction is going well out there, so everything's good so
Okay.
far.
All right, that's the kind of report we like. I need a motion to approve the community care report, please.
I so move.
Commissioner Soriano, thank you. A second. Commissioner Turner, thank you. All in favor of community care report approval, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
And of course, there is no opposition. Okay, looking at the agenda, special projects report, I saw Ms. Jolly come in, and if you, now, this report, just so the audience knows, its function is to really to inform the committee of any special projects that the county has, and we usually have something, building something, doing something. This particular one involves Eagleville High School, some changes there, and some budget amendments and whatever, but most of it is Stewart's Creek High School, which is in its, well, we're a little over half through. At any rate, Ms. Jolly keeps up with the money, millions of dollars. She's responsible for every penny. We'll make up anything that's lost. Well, maybe not, but she does keep us up to date on everything. So, Ms. Jolly, if you would.
Okay, Stewart's Creek is 65% construction complete, and it's probably a little more than that because I've noticed that I've got 67.4% spent, so I'm sure it's different to what this is. 65% complete, with $4,245,586 unobligated at this time. Of course, Eagleville's 100% complete, but only 92.78% spent.
Let's go outstanding bills for Eagle.
That's right.
Outstanding bills for Eagle. Can we? If it's 100% complete and we're going to spend 92% of the money, that rest of it go back to the county.
Some of it will, not all of it. We've got some minor change orders that we're working through at this time, trying to get those settled. We're getting close.
So we're coming under budget.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just so the audience knows, it looks like we're just maybe throwing figures around and without looking at them. We've had this report for about a week or so, and we are talking about in this particular report some figures that are somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 million. So I just thought the audience might be interested in knowing that. Anything else, Ms. Jolly? Looks like we're in pretty good shape here, and I'm glad to know that Stewart's Creek is online and about where it's supposed to be, and we're going to be able to get in about 1,500 students into that new building, I guess, in about, 8 months, I guess, 7 months. So that's going to be very exciting for the entire county. I need a motion to approve Ms.
So-
Jolly's report.
So moved.
Ms. Cook, thank you. Soriano, a second. Thank you, sir. If there are no further questions, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And thank you, Ms. Jolly, as always. Excellent job. School board amendments is next, and the county finance director for schools, Mr. Sandvik, is with us. And Mr. Sandvik, you want to come on up and just bring the director and Mr. Clardy with you, if you would. While they're coming up, I want to recognize the chairman of the school board, Mr. Terry Hodge, has come in, and he went down to see Mr. Gill, I would assume, tonight, and got the gym open down there and named for him. So, Mr. Hodge, welcome. The students, the three gentlemen, the gentleman nearest me is Mr. Gary Clardy, who's the assistant superintendent for instruction. The gentleman in the middle is our Director of Schools, Mr. Don Odom, and Mr. Jeff Sandvig. And his first business will be Mr. Sandvig's, I would assume, is our Finance Director for our schools. And gentlemen, welcome as always. Mr. Sandvig? Or Mr. Odom? Who's going to do this?
I'll do this.
Okay.
And we are bringing forward a capital projects fund budget amendment, asking to take $125,000 from committed for educational capital projects, old fund balance, in order to fund the changes that we need to make at the Laverne and Smyrna High stadiums for seating for people with disabilities in accordance with the Americans with Disability Act. And our motion is to amend $125,000 from committed for educational capital projects, account 34685, to other contracted services, account 91300-399, in order to fund this project. We feel we're in good shape in that fund balance.
Are these the only two facilities, high school facilities, that are out of compliance? I just didn't know if we did a countywide study to see if some of the other high school facilities might be out of compliance, and we were going to have to go back in 3 months and come back up here and say one more high school was out.
As far as I know, we're in compliance. Most of them are newer stadiums.
This was in 90-something when
Probably,
the act was passed.
Right.
And these were built in '88.
Yeah, they were.
Mr. Clardy, can you describe what the changes are that are going to be made with this money?
If you'll look on your book that I left at your place, on the last page, there's a little schematic in there. And both of these stadiums are very similar. And on the visitor side, the renovation would consist of a ramp up with seating and then 4 rows of seating behind that. And they would also be left in such a condition that the stadium seating could be continued behind that, since we have the issue with the other seating issues during large games. On the home side, there'd mainly be a ramp leading up to the first rows, and some of the seating would be taken out to make arrangements for wheelchairs. And that's basically all of those changes within that $125,000.
Because those are concrete bleachers, so are you going to have to take out some of the concrete to make that work for the seating?
No, not on the home side. It'll be fine, and then on the visitor side, it's an extension to what's there.
And then what about the restroom facilities? Do we currently have adequate ADA restroom facilities?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
What is the seating? How many more were we adding? What is the seating capacity?
Of what we're adding 3 rows, which will be very minimal, maybe 30 people, including folks with disabilities. So the front row on the new ad will have a place for maybe 5 wheelchairs, and then there will be 3 rows for anyone who would be with them to sit behind them.
And that's the home side?
No, that's the visitor side. The home side, we would just have basically 5 wheelchair seating areas.
And then the visitors will still have to come to the home side for restrooms?
Yes,
Okay.
at this time.
There's another project in the long range that we'll share with you tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
We were literally wheelchair, people were either on the ground or the track or something. And you know, being from Smyrna, how crowded it gets.
Right.
And they couldn't see over the crowd and all. So we were contacted with some parents that students tried to attend last year, and absolutely we have to meet ADA compliance.
That's right.
It's the right thing to do.
That's right. Thanks.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Turner, thank you very much for the motions. No further questions?
Ask this one.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't don't mind. We had a lot of conversation about safety issues at these two ball stadiums last year, relating to restrooms and those types of things. This doesn't address any of those.
The building program that, with our 5-year program we're going to give you in a few minutes, does address some of those things with restrooms and all. We have included it in that. Since we were taking this out of existing funds and not asking for additional bonds or monies with that, we're limited in what we can do. So this is really taking existing funding monies and putting in those two compliance areas.
Thank you.
Okay, committee, this, of course, is a funding issue, so Ms. Shelton will call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Mr. Odom, welcome, as always. And I understand you're going to be presenting a building plan and for more than 1 year and some immediate needs as well. So however you want to do this is fine. Go ahead.
Okay. We've given you some information. I'd like to start with this one sheet that's addressed to you. You have constituents, of course, that you have to answer to and explain what's happening. So I'd like to give you some background of how we arrive at some of these decisions of where we need to build a building, what we're seeing as far as growth and that sort of thing. And this is kind of information before we actually present you the program. But to begin with, I really want to thank the County Commission. You have really supported Rutherford County Schools over the years. I don't think anyone can say that you haven't. You certainly have. And so thank you for that. Rutherford County is one of the 21 exemplary school districts in the state of Tennessee. With our almost 40,000 students, the one closest to us is Sevier County with 14,000 students. It gets very difficult as you go up and have to account for more areas in the waiver program under No Child Left Behind. But anyway, thank you for that. We're the 6th largest school system in Tennessee now also. Since 2008, to meet our growth, you've funded 3 new middle schools, Rockvale, Oakland, and Whitworth, Buchanan. We have the new high school, Stewart's Creek, which has been talked about tonight, will open in August. And also in this same time period, we've had renovations or additions to 7 more schools. But even with these projects, there's still 149 portables in Rutherford County Schools, portable classroom spaces. So just kind of putting that in perspective. What have we done in enrollment? What numbers are we looking at? During the same 5-year period, the previous 5-year period that we're talking about, we've increased enrollment by 3,968 students. The largest increase in the last 5 years actually came this year. I looked at the end of the 4th month, which ended for us on the 12th of December, 2012, and we have exactly 1,000 student growth from the end of the 4th month of last year to the 4th month of this year. That's a significant increase that surprised us because last year it was like 512, something like that for last year. I thought the economy, that sort of thing, really surprised me. Did not expect that. That kind of caught us a little bit off guard, but it's 1,000. Since 2000, just to kind of give you the idea of where we are in Rutherford County, enrollment in Rutherford County schools increased by 12,960 students, and that's about 50%. You know, when you stop and take a look at that, so a 50% increase since 2000. Our growth is larger than most school systems in the state of Tennessee when you stop and look at the 134 school districts, and you have helped with funding that and keeping us up. I want to show you something that's number 4 there to kind of do some additional analysis to let you see kind of what's happening. These are 1-year numbers, 1-year growth numbers, again from end of the 4th month to the 4th month again. In the Blackman area, that's grown by 281 students. And of course, what the school board is doing this year to address that, Stewart's Creek High School, we're zoning some students to Stewart's Creek High School. From that, you also probably been reading in the last few days that we are having to look also at Blackman Elementary School. That school is now a little over 1,100 students, portables in use there. So we're looking at within the next couple of months ways that we can get some relief there by shifting some students to Browns Chapel Elementary to try to where we can utilize some additional space there. So that's in the process of being done. So 281 students in the Blackman area. Some of the area that we're talking about rezoning, very high growth, apartments and all, it's density right around that area. It's not just the number of people, but it's the density within that area, which has really changed for us within the last couple of years. The Laverne area has grown by 153 students. Ms. Cook, we had a conversation about this not many more months ago. We talked about, well, Laverne's kind of getting landlocked, maybe built out, but it's 153 students. And basically where I'm coming up with that number is Laverne Lake, Roy Walden, Laverne Primary, and looking at Laverne High School, just really in Laverne. So 153 students there. You're still growing.
It's at 6,000 home subdivision.
And also, and this one surprised me, and so that's why I included number C there, Rockville and Eagleville grew by 216 students. And that really surprised me, and that sum there is Rockville Elementary, Rockville Middle, and Eagleville School. So I was surprised to see that. So apparently that area, and of course, it looks like they're about to get their sewer system. So it would not surprise me at all for that particular area to grow at a more rapid rate, because that's an area that hasn't been developed nearly as much for Rutherford County. But in a one-year growth, 216 there really surprised it. Smyrna area actually grew the least with about 73 students. And again, a lot of that, the area that I didn't include would be out towards Stewart's Creek and some of those get just a little bit beyond what we consider central Smyrna. So that area hasn't grown as much. The biggest surprise I had in these numbers was the high school enrollment in Rutherford County schools increased by 470 in 1 year. 470 students in 1 year. Central Magnet here is accounting for some of that, 179, but that's not even half of it. And of course, that's the phase in with Central Magnet. You have roughly 75 seniors, and you'll see another increase next year here because the numbers for Central Magnet's about, what do we say, 1085 right now, and it'll go up to around 1225 probably by next year. But this tells me something else too. As we look where the students are coming from, these aren't all coming from our existing high schools. We're having people that are coming back from homeschool, private school. It's drawing students in this area, not only the magnet school, but our other high schools. When you have good scores and people see that and they notice it, they come for education, that makes a difference. I do think the economy has had a factor in this, that again, the cost of private school that certainly has put more people back in the public schools. But out of those 1,000 students, those little pieces right there stood out to me. So you'll kind of see some actions that we're trying to take to address that. So that's why I'm giving you those numbers. As your constituents begin to ask you, you can have something that you can say back to them, quote, maybe why. Looking at the 2012 Tennessee Public Schools report card, and that's the one for last year. As you look at that, one of the things that you may want to say to your constituents again, our local funding is pretty close to the state average. 38.2% of the budget for the education piece, not the building and all, comes from local funding. Its state average is 39.2%. Federal funding is 9.7% for Rutherford County, 14.3% for the state average. A lot of that is driven by the poverty areas. You have school districts that are up in higher poverty areas will certainly get more federal funding. But take our budget and think 9.7%, almost 10% of your budget is coming from federal sources, so it's still very significant dollars that come from that particular source. A lot of that, of course, being Title I and other projects that are related to that. So the other one is the state, and how does Rutherford County compare to other counties according to the state report card? The state funds 52% of our local budget. Across the state, it's 46.5%. So Rutherford County has tapped the resources at the state level, I think, seems quite well when you look at our poverty numbers and all, that you can say to your constituents that really the state's paying a little bit more than half of our educational costs for our instructional programs. So that's an interesting figure. Another thing that you're asked quite often, well, how good is our school board done, or how are you as a commission doing in the funding, because it gets down to the dollar amount. Of According to the state report card, last year we spent $8,098 per student. And in the state average is really $9,123. So we actually are spending $1,025 or 11.2% less than the state average. The citizens of Rutherford County are getting good schooling and to be an exemplary school system to achieve what we have at that funding much less than the state average for just the educational piece. So I think you can say to your constituents, you are getting a bargain for the monies being spent. And as people before me, Mr. Gill and others too, and the school board really looks at the dollar. So that's kind of gives you some things to talk about. And again, I want to say in the number 6 there, just kind of before we go on to looking at the building program, I really thanks again to the people in the school that came before me and your commission with the vision that you had, because safety of our students is such a big factor now that we're looking at. And if you've been watching the news, you see, you talk about other districts, even somebody like Williamson County and all, did not have any SROs in elementary schools, you know. And of course, the budget committee, if you served on that, this last meeting, you noticed that they were asking for enough to, we have half-time in the elementary, but we actually have 2 SROs in our high schools, 1 in our middle schools, and a half-time in our elementary schools. So through your vision and what you've been willing to support, Rutherford County was so much ahead of many of the others. Also, in our buildings, you look around, we've had a survey, actually had a meeting today. You know, you talk about buzz-in systems to get people in, or we've put vestibules and entryways where people coming in the building have to either come into the office or do buzz-in. We just have that everywhere. You've been doing that for a number of years. And I hear Sumner County and others talking about millions of dollars of budget to accomplish that. You're not going to have to do that. That's been done little by little over safety over those years. So we do support the movement to add the other SROs to get the full time in each elementary school. These people do so much more than provide safety for it. So a real asset to us. But again, accolades to you, County Commission, School Board working together, that Rutherford County has really worked hard over the years to make them as safe a schools as we possibly can. So kind of nice to brag about. So if you will kind of look at the second sheet, which is this one, which is a spreadsheet. I'll kind of go down the projects. Now, we got 2 or 3 things. Jeff has a breakdown with some of the funding, which we can talk about also. We've got each of these projects in this little book. As you have questions, stop and let's talk about it and see what we can do. The first item up there is the one that you really already approved, which was the mandated ADA compliance at Laverne High School field and also at Smyrna High School. So we've got that. The second item that we have here is Blackman Middle Annex, and that's $7,400,000. Basically, the growth at Blackman Middle, and looking at that, the enrollment is 1,085 at the end of the 4th month. They grew by 79 students this last year. 79 students in 6th grade. There's 1 to every 25 students, and so between 25 and 30 when you get 7th and 8th. So you're looking there in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 classrooms. And you say only 3 to 4 classrooms, but that's a problem. Where do you put those other 3 to 4 classrooms? Of course, what we've done in recent years is portables. We've placed a middle school further down because you've built so many middle schools. We talked about those 3 that you've added, you know, in the last 5 years. Our school board, as we looked at this the other night, thought, I don't know whether we can wait 5 years or more. And let me say this about this sheet. When we get out beyond 3 years or so, it gets really difficult. I'm not sure whether, in all honesty to you, to let you look at the picture and see what we're thinking, we put them all in a 5-year span of time. It may take 8, it may take 7. It depends upon that growth that's sometimes unknown to us. So as we look at this, even though we've got it in a 5-year span, we've kind of prioritized it is I think, will be of more interest to you maybe than in a specific year. So Blackman Middle Annex, and this goes against some of my grain as an educator. Mr. Jordan and I have talked about this. Wilson County does some of it, but when you start pushing your middle schools up to 1,400 students, that's a very different situation. So what we're proposing, if you'll look at the design of this, would basically be more of the 6th grade wing because the pupil-teacher ratio is different, the curriculum is somewhat different. we've added an area there because they're required to have physical education or activities like that. There is a room there. It's more of a playroom, not seats or anything. It's really, it's an area that you can call a gym area, but it's not that you could do anything in other than students have PE or practice in or something like that. But anyway, do you have questions or something about the Blackman Middle? We think this might keep us from having to build another middle school as quickly, because if you remember Rockville and Eagleville, we think about Rockville Middle out there and Eagleville out there, maybe we can shift some students there. You're quite limited in that because Rockville is approaching that 800 to 900, and of course we build those schools typically for $850, but we can get about 1,000 in it. Our core facilities allow about 1,000 students. So if you were to have another year or so at Rockville Middle, we really don't want to move students and then move them back and forth, because that really creates a lot of anxiety for parents and of course, siblings involved. So Blackman Middle School, do you want to say anything about that, Mr. Carter?
I'll just give them a brief synopsis here of what's included in that design, and that's a new 6th grade serving and dining addition, a new 6th grade wing where there's 21 classrooms, 4 science labs, a mini admin section and guidance suite, and then the PE gymnasium.
Of course, with 6 portable classrooms there, you hope to get out of the portable there first, plus then accommodate some of your growth.
Where's special education is important to me for my daughter's a special needs student. Where is the Blackman special education? You might not even know. I see that there's an addition there for the special education classrooms. Where are they meeting now at Blackman? Is it in the classroom and they would just be moved to a new one? Or
it's basically in the classroom, because if we relocate 6th grade, because when that building was designed, they had a special education area. So what you would try to do for many of those 6th graders is to locate them in that area together. We're going to try to keep them from moving as much as we can. We do have periods and they move, but ideally that you don't have 6th grade having to walk all over the building to get to where 7th and 8th graders are. You begin to try to, very similar to what you're seeing at some of your high schools, where you have the annex at Oakland, Riverdale, and that sort of thing. But because of courses, there's still sometimes students will have to come in for some of the music and some of the specialty areas. But yes, we created a section there to try to accommodate that.
Thank you.
So the purpose of the gymnasium is just that what you just said. You're
Compliance,
trying to keep,
to get them the time that the state says that they're supposed to receive physical education. The cafeteria, again, the addition at the cafeteria there, and it adjoins the other cafeteria. So, again, one of the problems we run into, we were at Blackman Elementary, we were discussing this the other day. She's starting lunch at around 10:20 and getting through at about 12:50. I mean, kids that get there and have to start lunch at 10:30-ish time is really an issue, because they've got a lot of day left, to do that. So typically to eat lunch, and I know it's shortened time is 25 to 30 minutes typically, and Ms. Allen, you know what I'm talking about, and trying to do that. So to try to relax that restraint a little bit there. To put 1,300 students in there and not do something about cafeteria would not be the recipe that you want to have.
I know the other core facility that you talk about is your library then. So is your library sufficient as it is? I know typically when I've heard this before, it's been, the gymnasium, cafeteria, library.
You will see in the next few years much more movement from, it'll be research areas now, but you're going to see, as far as library and library books, the online, the using of the laptops or iPads or something like you're using tonight is going to begin to change that dynamic.
Okay.
I think there is a need for that, but I don't think it's as critical as it was 10 years ago for us. So the three largest, the states that buy textbooks, which is California, Texas, and Florida, are requiring actually vendors to, if they're going to bid for their states, and they will want to bid, offer online textbooks and all. The pricing just hasn't gotten there. The cost of about $15.95 a year for a textbook for a 6-year adoption. You get around that $90, so like you can still buy a textbook for about the same price that it takes you to pay 6 years for the students. Plus, then you have your cost of your devices, charging, and that sort of thing. So, but that curve will cross. When big states and all start buying them, you're going to see that change dramatically. We think we're okay. Short answer, I guess.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, want to look at...
Mr. Holden, if you could hold on just 1 second. Are there any other questions from committee members? I have a couple. I believe I heard you say the other night in the school board meeting, or perhaps it was Mr. Hodge, that the enrollment at Blackman Middle was, I think it's almost exactly the same as here at Central Megalopolis. I believe it was 1,080 something.
I think it's the same right now.
So if this were built, you would be looking at, I'm not putting words in your mouth, I'm asking. Get rid of the portables, and the students that are in the portables would come into this, and then you're looking at growth and what's the total that this building would hold?
I would not want to go above the 1,300 to 1,400 range. What's happening in our schools, elementary and middle schools now, some of the specialty areas that were created have been turned into classrooms. And so, and sometimes it affects science, sometimes it affects your arts and other things. You would hope that you can return to a more complete program with the extra rooms. You'll not gain another 25 or 30 students for each classroom if you really have an optimal educational program. So the 1,300 to 1,400 range, I think if we don't do something there, I think we got to look at moving a middle school, building another middle school up more quick, and may have to anyway, but I think that's just what we're looking at. What can we do in the short term to try to accommodate this growth? That's what we're trying to do first.
Are you going to need additional staff members?
We do, but we move, if we relocate students, we move staff with them, which is like
Right.
Stewart's Creek High and all, with the exception of your certain specialty areas that you can't duplicate, like you're going to have another librarian, and a lot of things like that. But if we relocate students, we do move staff with that. But you certainly will, to maintain pupil-teacher ratio at the 1 to 25 or the 1 to 30, we will have to hire staff. But we're going to have to do that anyway, whether we have them in a portable or we have them in a building.
Well, speaking of that, and that's an excellent point. Of course, if you have more students, you're going to have more teachers, of course. But I would also think that some attention should be paid to having an additional administrator, and probably assigned to this building by itself.
Typically.
But anyway, I don't guess you can do that. However, Mr. Shelton wanted to do it, would be fine, and perhaps some SRO help as well. If we're going to go from not quite 1,100 to 1,400, that's a big jump. That's a lot of children and a lot of classrooms. And I understand your rezoning problems, and but that was a question that at least would like for you to address, and you kind of hit on it a little bit. To delay this by rezoning even a year, moving children to Stewart's Creek and to Rockvale. And I know you don't have a lot of seats at those two places, but I know you have some. And how much would that relieve the pressure on Blackman Middle immediately? I'm not saying I'm for that or against it. I'm just asking that question because I know it's going to come up repeatedly. It'll come up.
Rockvale Middle has 881. So again, I mean, you could put a few there. 850 was your number, but then immediately you find yourself again, if you have growth, do we did at Blackman? Do you move portables there now, or what you do? When you look at the next closest you get into Christiana Middle and things like that, because in that arc, once you get past Rockville, you go around to Christiana Middle. Begin to look at that. Christiana Middle is 822. So we're looking at over 800 in anything that we look at. And so as we look down, if we were going to wait 3-4 years or so on that side of town, that's one of your fastest growing, our two options are look for a site, build a middle school, or try to go in and create some additional capacity there, unless you're just going to buy portables. I just really do not recommend that. I mean, the cost of those and the type of education, the security, and everything that's involved with that is not desirable for us.
Further questions for Mr. Elder on Blackman or otherwise? You can move on if you wishes.
I think we need to look very closely at Blackman and in that area, Eagleville too, because Eagleville gets sewer, then it's going to burst like Laverne did. And I think we need to be getting with the builders when they decide to build those subdivisions, see how big it's going to be and what impact it's going to be on the schools, where we can plan.
We're able to accommodate, of course, when you really get into the Rockville, Eagleville area, you're not counting everybody that lives out there either in Rockville Middle, because they're capped at Eagleville now. That's the one area that they can't accept more students in because they don't have capacity, even though it was part of our addition this time. They're capped out in their enrollment for their middle schools. So you're correct. That is going to continue to be a problem for us.
Yeah, and we got to watch it very closely.
Okay, looking at Smyrna Primary School, Ms. Jordan, I think this is one of the ones that you've looked at for some time. Smyrna Primary was built in 1963, and we do have library issues there, Ms. Allen, because of the age of that. And in those of you, if you visited the cafeteria area there, it's still very, very small. It's a school that needs additional renovation. It needs additional capacity. That's one of our schools that's high Title I. Free reduced poverty area is higher there. It's just since 1963, it's time that we begin to look at what we can do. We've had an addition there, but we didn't change the core. We did not change anything in there to change that cafeteria, the library area, the entrance area, how you get into the building. So much of it is to correct some of those things, and I'll let Mr. Clardy show you that, what we're talking about there, plus add some additional classrooms there.
The renovations at Smyrna Primary would include a new media center, a cafeteria serving line and dining expansion, a new entrance canopy, which also includes some safety features in the vestibule, and then 7 new classrooms.
It's been a while since I've been in this school, but am I remembering it right where their gymnasium doesn't even have bleachers? Is that right?
It's a play area, basically.
Yeah. Have they asked for, yeah. Have they asked for any help with that? Is that an issue for them, or?
Well, with 5th grade, it's not really competitive. It's just, I think junior pro practices there some and all, which I had the same thing at David Urey for many years. I mean, it was a gymnasium without bleachers. They've added them now because we didn't have an auditorium. But basically, elementary schools do not necessarily need them, other than if you're going to use it as an auditorium or as a presentation area.
So what, do they have an area for their assemblies?
They don't have a really good area, because they were actually doing it in their cafeteria, if you remember, had the stage at one end. Because of capacity and trying to use that to get everyone through the cafeteria, we actually removed much of that. So, I mean, it's kind of like what I did early on. You go sit on the floor in the gym. That's what you do.
Also, just a staff meeting over there. They currently meet in their library, and it's shoulder to shoulder in there. They just don't have room to even have a entire staff meeting one place.
Right.
Mr. Odom, I noticed on the Blackman and Smyrna both additions, they both say August to 14. Is that completion or is that to begin? Because if that's completion, that means,
We were looking for a completion date for that if we could.
so that
because
means
it
we
gives us-
fund these this spring and start construction this summer.
We would have to do that if we
Yeah.
were going to meet that.
Fast track.
Correct.
Those are the two that look to me like have to have an immediate decision to make them
Within the next
fall.
couple of months or
Yeah.
so, if we're
I
going to
mean,
do
by
that.
spring at least, because when you get out to 15 and 16, that
Right.
could be fluid, could change a little bit depending on growth, but
Correct.
these two are both a year from August. There's not much time to
And-
waste on those.
Jeff has in the other spreadsheet that he's going to show you, the other one has some of that broken down, bid dates and that sort of thing, which is shown on that also. Number four, you mentioned Eagleville. Well, here we are, the Eagleville High Addition. We actually moved that up 1 to 2 years because with the approval of that sewer, I think we see it coming. So that's the Phase 1 addition. We did the Phase 2. That's $5,300,000. That is classrooms. That's a cafeteria and auditorium for them because, as you know, their cafeteria and their auditorium, much of it was combined together. So really, again, from a school that's been there many years, this again gives them the flexibility they need as a larger high school. So this is the Phase 1 addition, and Mr. Clardy, would you go over some of the things for that, please?
Yes, cafeteria renovation, which is taking the current stage out, which is small and in one end, and expanding the cafeteria into that. 9 classrooms, 2 science labs, a choral rehearsal room, a band rehearsal room, and a 400-seat auditorium and stage.
At the high school there. Eagleville currently, let me see if I put this on here. I've got it on this sheet. Eagleville total in that bid is about 850 right now. 850 is what they are. Exactly. I would say another 100 to 150 you could do reasonably well with that, possibly more, but it's going to be difficult there.
Do you see that school growing much above the size that it is right now? I guess what I'm getting at is we'll probably open up that age-old debate about the size of that high school versus the size of the rest of our high schools in the county. Is that $5 million well spent on a high school of that size versus one that may be coming, and I see on down your list potential Rockvale, yes.
I guess when you begin to look at it, if you ask the people that go there, because we have a number of people that just absolutely choose Eagleville. If you ask the people in Eagleville, I know what the answer is going to be.
I have no doubt about that.
Be careful, Jeff. I asked that question 2 years ago, and I nearly got shot for asking about, because it is a legitimate question. How much more growth and how much more will be at Eagleville long term? Because Rockvale is going to come at some point in time, somewhat just down the road. Very emotional.
It is a very emotional thing.
And question for a lot of people out there.
And I don't disagree with that emotion at all. But we're also talking about taxpayers for the entire county, and I guess you guys have done your due diligence, and you're recommending that we do this.
We are recommending that we go ahead and I go back to some of the things that I did for Smyrna Primary and all. Because of the number of years, the facility itself, the need for additional science rooms and the things to maintain a program there, we need to look at this just for the upgrade as much as the additional people. You've got both factors in this with the upgrade. Did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know this is very unpopular way to look at things, but from our standpoint, we have to look at things from every direction, because we want to get the bang for our buck. So there's a possibility that someday down the road, 10 years, 15 years from now, that Eagleville may become a middle school. You'll have Rockville High School, and then there may be a need for an elementary school out there. So then you would have your elementary school, your middle school, and then the high school students going to Rockville. And that's very unpopular, but it's factual.
I don't believe there's been a formal announcement about Eagleville and the sewer situation. I think that comes up later this month. But I think we're going to have to admit to ourselves here that really what we're dealing with here, and I think you all are too, is some guesswork. Let's assume they get sewer, and I'm told that that's going to happen, that the school, as a matter of fact, will be the very first customer, and they're desperate for it. The school is, for sure. And what will happen to the Eagleville community at that point and over the next 5-6 years? And that's guesswork. It is. Do I know? No. I think I do, but you know, I'm not certain. And we're betting $5 million here on. And I don't know if it's right or wrong, and I don't think anybody here does.
We actually have, that's not one that has to be started this spring. So you're going to have a chance to look at possibly this fall's enrollment, what happens, what changes, what other growth. And I think by this fall too, if the sewer's approved and developers start looking, you're going to start seeing through your planning commission and all, you may know some things before we do, and we'll just have to look at it together and see what we need to do. But I think it's something we have to keep on our radar. I really do. That we have to talk about it and look at it.
Well, because the other thing is, when you talked about the upgrades, what you're really saying is we've got a body of students and faculty that have made a lot of compromises with an aging building to try to force a fit and try to create with their own solutions over time in lieu of building. And so now we're trying to correct and give them the facility that they need that's comparable to their peers at the Stewart's Creek and at the Central Magnet. Because, you know, as a parent, I have to tell you, I have lots of friends with lots of kids in lots of schools, and they grumble about the new school getting the new and the best of this and that, and my kid is stuck, you know, in a portable or whatever. I mean, they're all taxpayers. And so we need to look at leveling that playing field for that quality of education among all the schools, and not, because we all know zoning exemptions are hard to come by. And so if you want your kid to have, you know, the best facility, the best environment for education, sometimes we're going to have to spend money to do that. And we've tried very hard as a community, and your numbers that you started with prove that. We've tried very hard to watch those pennies very carefully. But I don't see that as a wasted money now or in the future, because that school will be utilized. Those classrooms will be, we've proven that over and over again. We use workrooms. We will use every square inch imaginable. So I don't see it as being wasted money. I just see it as an investment.
It would also level that playing ground, as you say, on the high school side, but if in the long term it did need to become a middle school, it would also put it comparable to the middle schools that we're building now as new school. Right. So it's kind of a win-win situation that fits into a plan that's flexible.
Right.
Looking at number 5, Roy Waldron edition, Ms. Cook, and part of that is driven by, again, because, and I'll give you another number that maybe helps. Laverne Lake has 903 students now, Laverne Lake Elementary. And of course we have started placing portables there. Roy Waldron, as you look at that, has 740. It grew by 27 this year, already has 6 portables. Again, many students are served there with Title I and other resources. It's also a fairly high percentage of English language learner students. As you look at that, anytime that you have those situations where you have to address things for Title I, extra support services, English language learners, that sort of thing, it changes your dynamic, and it takes additional individual spaces to do that. You can go there today and you'll find the portables divided up, you know, with take a portable, one Title I class here, another one in the other part of it, and you know what I'm talking about in dealing with that. So we're trying to figure in that area that you and I thought maybe had been kind of built out or covered. It didn't make a lot of sense to add to Laverne Lake there. We've actually now, you know, Laverne Primary came in so high that we're now down to kind of kindergarten at Laverne Primary is basically what we're doing. We shifted when we did Laverne Lake, those second graders and first graders, a lot of them over to Roy Waldron, but now we're getting to that capacity in that area. So by making an addition there, or adding an addition there, it should allow us to get out of the portables and also handle most of that additional growth in that particular area. You're kind of going to have to get over 24, I think, to do that. Now, we're looking at some things at this. We haven't done at other elementary schools much, and looking at two-story because of the footprint, the land that's remaining. So some of the same things that you're beginning to see in some of these at Blackman Middle and some of the things, looking at more two-story structures in order to accomplish that. But again, that keeps us from purchasing additional property, and from the economy of scale, that helps us to try to meet that. So we're just trying to accommodate potential future growth there, because I think it's coming, and the programs that are going to be required for that.
One thing about it, we don't have much land left.
We don't.
That's a good thing in a way.
David Urey renovation is one of your smaller amounts there. They have 736. They actually dropped a little bit this year. They have 5 portables. Basically, they pick up some of that area that's growing. And here's the other thing in Smyrna that I should have mentioned a few moments ago that kind of scared us this year. We found out as we were rezoning Stewart's Creek High School and all that there's 6 multifamily dwelling projects, apartments, other things being developed in Smyrna. One of those was in the Smyrna primary area. You've seen one that's adjacent to Smyrna High School. And we actually, over the Smyrna primary, Thurman Francis is that zoned area. They called and told us they had gotten 12 students from that apartment complex in the elementary school that showed up in the Christmas, after Christmas, you know, at Thurman Francis to accommodate. So as we looked at those 6 in that, in the apartments, we had to start looking at ways to try to look ahead and accommodate that. You're going to see some of the same thing, I think, in Laverne area. We're seeing multi-family dwellings with higher density. And this is an attempt, without going out and building another elementary school or trying to get an elementary school very large, to address that particular need. Roy Waldron was built in the same time David Urey was. You're in the 1975-76 range. So, you know, they're beginning to come towards their 35th year or so here we're talking about. So from 35 to 40 years, and that's a long time. You want to list some of the things that we're talking about doing there? And this is one of the security pieces also at David Urey.
The renovations at David Urey would be a new administration office suite, a new guidance suite, new canopy and secure entrance, and teacher dining and work area renovation. And anyone that's familiar with David Urey knows that we have the buzzer system on the front door, but once there's a distance from the front door over to the office area that has to be covered. I think they have a desk there now to try to control that, but we've been looking at this for some time, and it really needs to be done at some point to help that situation.
When you come into David Urey, you're immediately in the cafeteria. If you remember that, there's just kind of a bronze-looking divider there. I mean, somebody could head to the left and they go into a 6th classroom section or another way. So it is a little bit more difficult. So they actually moved a station and a person at the front door with a counter, with the buzz-in system, to add additional security there. And what he's talking about, the addition would actually sit in the area that's before the sidewalk. If you kind of facing David Urey on the left side, there's a grass area and all there that we would take up that and put the office complex there, close that off so that people coming into the building would have to come through that area before they actually entered the building.
You gonna put bulletproof glass up?
You know, the lady sits there by herself now. She's right there. That's it. This is one of those pieces that, like I said, we have been so good about in Rutherford County over the years. While we're not facing huge cost at one time like some of our surrounding counties try to come back and pick up security and all, because we've been able to do some of these pieces all along that we saw that was needed. So this is another one of those.
So the SRO here built, starts since 1993 or something?
Actually, the SRO program we have the oldest SRO program in actually the state of Tennessee in 1993. And if you'll let me chase one rabbit, I'll do that. I was at a meeting with superintendents and other, and I was listening to Williamson County say, hey, we're going to get it where when the police come, they can see in our building, they can look at the cameras, they can see what's going on, get a layout of the building. Did you know we can already do that and been able to do that? I mean, if you brought the Sheriff's Office mobile command center, or they can come in, tap into our security camera system, see in our buildings. When I listen to other people, it's just really amazing. Actually, Mr. Carlton called or something and said there was actually some federal monies in the 1970s where we had some SROs for a short period of time until that expired. So even 93 may not be as early as we first experimented with it. The SROs help us now in placing cameras. We literally in Stewart's Creek High School, from their experience and looking at the building, help us decide where in this building do we want our cameras to watch the traffic patterns and all. So we work very close with them in that respect.
Some of the other things, Mr. Odom, for instance, an SRO at some point will be able to pull those cameras up on his cell phone for that school and just look at it as he's walking around the parking lot, for instance. So we have taken money along over the last 10 years and upgraded all of this stuff as we were able to do it, because the commission and the school board have known the importance of this, and so we've been proactive on most of it.
Okay, looking at 7 and 8 together there's the Laverne High School, Smyrna High School bleachers, and then that restrooms and concessions that you were talking about access to there. If you've been to a ball game, you know what we're talking about. And I guess another thing is equity. Those schools are as large as our schools up here. But when you look at their stadiums, because there's basically opened in 1988, their stadiums hold 2,500 seats, basically, and our stadiums up here are about 5,000 seats. So they're about half, the same number of students, about half. This becomes an equity issue and something that we need to do for the people in Smyrna and Laverne, basically to try to balance this out some again. It's somewhat expensive when you look at that, but again, I think it's very important. They play football, some soccer, and all there and all too. But again, this is an equity issue for us that we need to take a look at. And you want to describe a little bit about the bleachers that you're talking about for that?
There would be, I can't recall the exact numbers, and these were bid on the plan when we bid the new high school, but we didn't have enough funds to go ahead and do it. But we did that at the request of Health Ed and the Commission and the school board. There will be an addition to the behind the handicap ramp and handicap seating of several rows that match the elevation of the existing bleachers on the visitor side. In the end zone, which is the handiest end zone for both schools, there would be a concession and a restroom. And the visitors could come to that concession stand as well as the home team go there, and also the restroom. So that would actually be the main point, that there would be any mixing of visitors and home team. Right now we have a situation where you may have 2,000 people piled up on the fence all down that side. Tensions get high sometimes. They have to go over to the home side to use the restroom or to get a hot dog. So it gets very volatile in there, and we're trying to get this done. We've been discussing it for several years now to try to assure that, or the best we can, that we don't contribute to a situation where we have some kind of catastrophic event there.
So how many seats would be added?
I can't remember. I think there's like 600 to 800 seats, I believe.
It's still going to make them below.
Beg pardon?
It's still going to be a little bit below that 5,000 figure that you have at the other stuff. Maybe a phase thing that we do. Or something we do. We're now entering the area when you come to number 9. And in the comments section, because I know, again, your constituents and others are going to ask you, I put little numbers out there. You know, where will the next, as you take a look at number 9, the next elementary, I don't know, but I know where students are now. So as you look at it in that particular area, again, Rock Springs Elementary's got 820, Cedar Grove Elementary's got 933, Stewart's Creek Elementary has got 810, and Stewartsboro's got 906. So in those 4 schools that you're looking at there, there's already 3,469 students with 6 portables. So as that area begins to develop south of Smyrna, and it will with the sewer out there in your Stewart's Creek High School and the water that's been moved out there too, somewhere in there you're going to see that take off. And so again, is that 4 years out, 5 years out? I don't know that we know exactly, but we know that's a very dense area. Back up in Blackman with 1,100, I hope Musselburgh City kind of is able to get their elementary school out there and help us, because if you know, constitutionally we have to handle the students. So in that area with that high density, we can do a short-term address by moving some to Brown's Chapel. But in the long run, if something doesn't happen there, then we'll find ourselves in an elementary school issue there very quickly. Because Barfield is already quite large. Barfield has 999 students, so we don't have anywhere to go.
And this will hinge a lot on what the city does, because they have talked about another school out toward Blackman, but that would be huge to us, one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Takes a year to build this elementary school.
We usually a year, 15 months on middle, and about 2 years or a little longer in high school. Is that what you use?
We've been accomplishing construction of middle and elementary school in a year, and high school in 2 years.
So construction, if this were approved, would have to be in August of 2015 to begin.
If you go to the elementary school.
If we had a year.
Construction would start in probably the summer of 15. Okay. You would need your plans developed in the fall of 14, in the winter of 14. So the money would actually have to be committed, but not totally sitting in the bank when the construction started in 15.
And unlike possible high schools, we have no land for that school.
You really do not.
Okay.
Well, even to that point, I mean, if you're talking about a new high school and it takes 2 years, we'd basically be talking about funding a new high school and an elementary and plans for all that at the same time,
That's
right?
correct.
So that's...
Well, again, we stacked it at the bottom kind of here because we're going to have to look at that. But we really have difficulty when you get out to 5 and 6 years. Sure. And you go, and what areas, fool you there. But one thing we're trying with the high school, with that 470, like I say, that frightened me when I saw 470 in 1 year. For whatever reason, item 10 is Siegel High School Edition, which we have portables there already. But that again, that grew 44. That accommodates on the north side of town a little bit to handle some of that high school growth there.
Well, and the reason I was asking that, Dr. Edward, just mentioning that was, we had this same conversation 2 years ago when myself, Commissioner Soriano, and Ms. Allen came on board. Was that's a lot of the heavy lifting on the back end, obviously, and then you're talking about property tax increases as funding and things like that. But more, my point was, in that August 14, July 14 timeframe, you've got an old commission that could be voting to do all this, and that new commission would come on 2 months later, and I hate to say be stuck with that decision, but certainly be dramatically affected about the way they would have to look at things, as opposed to if it was voted on in 2015, and then it would kind of be on their plate. But as it is laid out now in the plan, it would be an old commission or an old committee would actually be voting on that decision.
One thing you have to remember, though, also is that this has been in the plan for years.
Right.
Because we have the property, 2 pieces of property that are already bought and paid for, and the major earthwork is done on those, ready for these high schools. So it's been good planning on the school board part and the commission part to bring all of these projects along for the growth with that in mind.
Sure. Well, and that's the case, but you see my point. You know, they'd be voting on property taxes as soon as they got up here, and that wouldn't go over well. So there's certainly going to be decisions, as there is every year down the road, for whatever that new commission and new school board or whoever might be involved would have to make some heavy decisions.
One of the potentials, if Mr. Jordan, if I might go to 12 there, basically is when you look at the middle school numbers, somewhere in that, it may happen earlier, because currently Laverne Middle School with 1051, Rock Springs Middle with 999, and Stewart's Creek Middle with 840, and that arc from Laverne around. You know, if that grows much more, that one's going to be difficult. We already have at Oakland Middle and Siegel Middle, you got 1,035 and 1,003. Still got a little capacity there in Whitworth Buchanan. If they ever decided to open that road up to 70 over there in Whitworth Buchanan, that area is going to change, because it was a plan coming in front of Amazon, you know, taking that road and running it all the way around to 70. That'll open up a lot of building there. So, I mean, middle school, of course, that's when we pick up all the students, you know, for Rutherford County, at least with 7th grade up. So whatever happens, we have to accommodate all of those. And so that's why you built so many middle schools in recent years.
If I may, one of the things when growth picks up, when we were working on an earlier version a couple of years ago, we really did, looking at the approved lots and all there, we faced, okay, it could go this end of the county or that end or both at the same time. And we are big enough, spread out enough county that you wouldn't be able to shift. Right. You could face 2 schools in a particular grade structure.
I took some numbers for you in the bottom left-hand corner there. 2013, that was, again, but on December 12th of this last year, the 39,859. We actually have a little over 40,000 when you count the preschool in there that's involved too, but of the straight K through 12, not the governor's preschool, it was 39,859. Took 2.6% to 2.4%, and you're looking at, over a 5-year period, possibly 5,000 additional students. I mean, does that happen? If it does, you're looking at 2 to 3 schools, and you literally are in realism. So we put them on here because we don't want to say later on, well, you didn't tell us about that. But I want you to see just the real numbers, with certainly growth that we've experienced much more than that in recent years at times. So it just kind of puts a realism on what could happen.
Mr. Arterby, you hear in theory all these ways to maximize utilizing brick and mortar buildings so that we don't just keep building and building and building, you know. Talk us through just a little bit the pros and cons of that, of some of those creative uses that people look at, whether it's, you know, an alternating a calendar or offering online classes, or, you know, what are you seeing? I mean, trend-wise, what are you seeing in the education industry? When you look, you see a move away from it unless they have to.
I've been to the year-round school, National Year-Round School Convention twice. We looked at it even back as far as Dr. Ragsdale, you know, when you go back in the 80s and all. Places basically that were doing that because of the immigrants coming in and people in Texas. You'll see from Texas around, mainly through California, the Southwest, is where you'll see that done. At the time I went to the convention back in the 80s, Orlando, when Walt Disney World and all was growing so much, they were into it. The interesting thing, I would go ask the people in the restaurants, the waitresses and all, well, do y'all have year-round? Says yes, and we're getting rid of it, and I'm so glad because I got one kid on this calendar and another kid on another calendar. Basically, how do you get them all together? Athletic teams got to be together at one time. Bands needs to be with them at that time. You never have all of your faculty in one building at one time. They're on different tracks. The principal says one of the hardest things they did. They do it, but they typically do it until they can do something else.
Okay.
You know, I mean, that's just the fact. I actually went to that. Excuse me. I went to that site today, and I noticed the site had It's a National Year-Round School Association. They hadn't updated since 2009, so I'm wondering what might be happening there. And you can go look at it yourself. It's there.
So what about like online classes, or even I've heard of people running, you know, like day classes versus night classes, and the students having the option. And so I know you're running your utilities more, and you're running more staff because your faculty can't. And it still comes up with some of the issues, like if I'm a football player, I have to be in one of the or the other. Or I mean, are there any of those other creative things that you're even talking about or looking at? Or are they just are those all just stopgap measures till you can get a building built?
No, you're going to see more dual credit, dual enrollment, and online classes. In fact, proposal that will come to the school board next month will be for our summer school. We're going to be offering some year-round classes there, and all to do that. So we're having more students finish earlier in high school in Rutherford County because they can get their credits and that'll go up a little bit with that when you do. So you're going to see more and more classes like that offered. Day and night, we already have night classes. It's at Holloway. Laverne we didn't have as many at Laverne. I think we've had to basically close that one because when we went to the 7-period day, students were able, even if they were having to retake a credit or something, they were able to accommodate it a little bit better. So we're not having as much of that as we used to. So but we still have a rather large night class at Holloway and all too. So you have people making up credits, because even if they make it up, that's a student in a classroom for you, so it's a cost. So being able to offer more online and opportunities and night things, we are doing that already.
Thanks.
I just want to echo what Commissioner Allen said. Thank you for at least looking at that. It certainly helps, you know, on our end. Funding becomes an issue, and how new schools will be funded. You know, with clear conscience, we can say we're certainly looking at everything. I think the community appreciates that, and I know the committee appreciates that. And I'm always interested, same as Commissioner Allen, on out-of-the-box ways that we might be looking at helping with enrollment. And, you know, the students learn better in those settings. I mean, there's studies that back that up, so that's certainly helpful. I appreciate you bringing up that website. That's certainly something I'd be interested in looking at to better educate myself on as well.
Your other issue is you save on the building cost. But your other issue is when you go to year-round, you start running your buses 12 months. You start running your utilities 12 months.
Operation costs.
You still got to have your teacher cost with the growth that's there. In the school systems that we're doing, hopefully to gain 20, and you never maximize. If you think you can get a 25% gain, they tell you it doesn't work that way. It's going to be 4 or 5% less. And then when you take on cafeteria, custodial, buses, utilities, then your cost factor really goes up. So you're talking about a tax increase on an annual basis to deal with that. But where your saving might be for a period of time until you get to the point you can't anymore is your building and that one capital outlay for that building. And what you're doing is actually delaying that. That's what you're doing.
But if you commit to that and it doesn't work, 4 or 5 years down, you're behind the 8 ball. You've got a problem. You have slowed down your building program to do that, and then you have to bail, and you're doubling up in your building to catch up. And realistically, if we're growing 2.6%, we're playing with the big boys now. It's, you know, it's not, when we had 10,000 students, it was a school every 4 years, but with 40,000 students, it's a school every year. We may build 2 this year and none next year, but it's going to average at least a school a year. We were building 4 schools at one time in the mid-90s when they built Lascassas, Kittrell, Rockvale, and Stewart's Creek, or Stewartsboro maybe, Rock Springs maybe, but we're building 4 schools at once 16 years ago. It's nothing new. We're going to be building schools for the foreseeable future.
The numbers, go ahead.
Just one area, if we were to try the year-round calendar, an area that we would really see an increase, just wear and tear on our facilities, above and beyond custodial staff.
Well, yes, and you know, you get into the situation where the school never has time to heal, so you end up with, and particularly the older buildings where the machinery and equipment is taxed, you end up with, you know, sick syndrome buildings where you can't ever get the carbon monoxide and the moisture out of them because there's never any recovery time on them. Always occupied.
Many of the year-round, at that site, when you go look at it, they're calling it year-round, but they're really not doing multi-tracking. To get extra students, you have to multi-track. They're talking about doing the go 9 weeks, off 2 or 3, and that's a form of year-round. So when you look at the numbers of schools doing it, many of them are not the multi-track. That, again, is primarily limited to kind of the southwest and the far west that you see it.
Mr. Odom, you're up to 2017. Do you want to go into the new, the Siegel High School edition, or
well,
is that just for our information?
I really kind of think we are. That school was designed for the addition. It's on the drawing to do that. So instead of portables and all that, when you really are adding, that will be one of the simpler additions that you can accommodate more students there simply by extending one of those wings. So that's a good move at the most economical way that you could do it.
You have given us numbers where we need about 6 schools within the next 5 years, if not more.
Well, you know,
I hope the listening audience is listening to that.
6 schools.
With 38 through 2018, it's almost 6 schools.
And if it slows down, I mean, if those 2.4, 2.6, 2.5, the trouble is when you take 2% of 40,000 students, I mean, the percentage goes down, but the numbers still equate to 800 students or plus.
That's 1,000 per school.
Committee, if you have any further questions on any of these items, but since we're going to take a month here at least to consider, and now might be a good time to address those. And while you're thinking about that, Director Odom and committee, I did talk, I guess it's been a few weeks anyway, with the administration there at Smyrna Primary, and I didn't address it as they went through and should have done so while Mr. Odom was talking. She feels like that, Mr. Odom, you help me out here because I'm probably going to need some help, but she felt like that the makeup of her student body, English as a second language, for instance, being very critical to her, and the fact that she was just absolutely, completely out of space. She didn't have any space. And she had to do something, and I apologize for not remembering this exactly, but she had to do something with her computer room that she did not want to do, that it allowed some access. She had to have it for a classroom. She had to really make some changes there, and she felt like the computer skills to her student body and the makeup of her student body, and you're shaking your head like so far I'm on track.
You are.
Well, that in her media center, that she was just desperate for that, and for the cafeteria changes as well. And I promised her that I would bring that to the attention of the committee, and so I just did so. And committee, do you have any comments on any of these items here? Mr. Odom is not expecting a vote tonight or any motions to be made on any of this. And I don't see anybody that wants to talk. I guess you've made all your comments?
Yeah, a quick question, and it's probably been answered before, but I can't remember. It's probably first stages of Altamont sitting in, but let me just ask, the bleachers and the restrooms and the concession stands, we charge money to get into those ball games, correct?
We do.
Where does that money go?
A lot of it goes to support athletic events. Because football and basketball, a little bit baseball, supports all of the other things that you have to do in compliance. Because if you really want to get your students involved in an athletic program, be it swimming, be it golf, be it volleyballs, it's very difficult for them because they have to travel and all to have enough fun. So principals basically have to take that money in an athletic fund, and then it's tended to be divided up to support the non-paying sports. So in order for a lot of your students to participate in all these other areas, that's what happens.
I think one of the concerns that some of us, maybe it's just me, may have is that we're talking about building bleachers for somewhat, would be used somewhat like 5 times a year, correct? 5 home games.
Ever how many home games?
Something like that. And just the thought, I know you guys have probably discussed it, but why not raise prices to get in to those games that need those additions?
Can I play the devil's advocate here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and the devil's advocate, well, you didn't build it for us to start with, but you sent us the students. That's as many as in the other schools. So you're asking us to pay for something that you've already provided for the other schools. And I understand what you're saying, pay for that. But I know that's what people are going to say to us, and legitimately so, to do that. It's kind of like a surtax on something to do that. I haven't examined that.
No, but you read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Well, if you want to get down to it, though, Oakland and Riverdale went 25 years as high school before they ever got a stadium at all.
Yeah, they did.
And Smyrna Laverne had them the day they opened.
They did.
So you can talk equity. You can go
That's
back.
true.
Depends on how far you want to go back with equity.
I think a lot of people don't realize the only time in my 15 years that we buy out of school central office funds or building program funds, that we buy anything used for sports is when a school is opened, or if we change grade structure totally at a school. But the replacing uniforms, equipment, all of that comes out of these general athletic funds, which it is a pretty hefty bill. After opening, they're on their own.
I knew there was a good answer. Thank you for giving that. We're building more and more schools, and sorry you mentioned that. And high school after high school, it just seems to be coming one every 5 or 6 years, somewhere down the road. And these high schools are competing with each other. So the additions at Blackman and at Laverne and Smyrna are supporting the parents and the students from Blackman, and so it's just it's almost an inbred type of thing. I'd be willing to bet that most of the out-of-county schools that play at Laverne or Smyrna don't bring the numbers that the ones inside the county bring.
Oh, yeah.
So it's an issue that's not age old. It's an issue that we've kind of created ourselves internal to the school system. And just the thought of charging more to add to those was a thought, but you've answered the question, and I can understand. I would probably feel the exact same way if I were asked to pay more to get into a ball game. I just had to ask. Thank you.
Well, whenever we build a new school, which we do, as you just pointed out, we always build it better than the one that opened up 4 or 5 years ago and provide things for them that they didn't have. And there are numerous examples of this. If we did it in reverse, if we built Stewart's Creek and provided for them what we provided at Oakland and Riverdale High School, and I ought to know I was there, We would have no facilities for girls whatsoever. None. One office for a girls' basketball club. That would be it. They would have no softball, certainly.
Along came Title IX.
No baseball. and obviously, we wouldn't even consider doing that.
Right.
So I've said this before in print. Equality is a wonderful thing. We're never going to reach it, but we can sure try. And we got to try. The law says we got to try. And we've had some lawsuits which we have lost because we did not, for whatever reason, provide. And I'm not really blaming anybody here, but we didn't provide that, for girls, for instance, as we had provided for a newer school. So it's always going to be a problem.
Even when we have a booster club that provides something at one of our schools now, one of the items that has to clear before our board can vote on it, does this impact Title IX? If we do it for baseball, what can we do for softball, in lieu of that? So, it's not clear anymore. Title IX rules that.
Can I just follow up with one more thing? One of the things that's near and dear to some of our hearts, and I think Commissioner Jordan and maybe Commissioner Cook will attest to this, that what we don't see, you talk about improvements in building schools, the roof systems and all those types of things, we know are more expensive, but we know also in the long run that they're a lot cheaper to do that by paying for those up front. We also know that the money that's set aside every year from the tax rate that's set aside for schools, for maintaining those schools has been, in my mind, a tremendous hit, a good hit, simply because we don't have to fool with those things month after month after month after month that this roof is leaking and this chiller stopped. So your managing of those funds and the school board, Chairman Hodges out there, the way you've managed those funds too has been a tremendous lift of a burden off of this commissioner's heart. So just a commendation, thank you for managing those maintenance funds the way that you have. And we're dealing with some maintenance issues in other parts of the county right now, and it just reminded me that we don't deal with those things or have to deal with those things anymore. And it's just a commendation once again to school board members and the administrative members for being able to manage those funds and us not having to deal with those month after month and year after year. Good job. Thank you.
Stewart's Creek High School, the envelope, the building, between $80 and $90 a square foot. Go other places and look at the 120s and the 130s. Then look at that building and you'll realize the value that's been into it. This fellow's brought a lot to that from his experience in the building area. But we've done well at that in design. Geothermal roofs, many things that pay back, like you say.
Well, the ball is, I suppose, in our court now, to use a cliche. I know you told me last month you were not expecting any kind of motions or vote tonight, and I don't see that the committee wants to do that. If they can speak up at any time. They know that. I assume you want us to think about this for a month and come back. Committee, any thoughts on that? I assume that's all right with everyone, but next month I will request the finance director to be here and Ms. Nolan, and we'll look at these items. I assume you'll put in a return appearance, and we will have questions, I'm sure. Are we in good shape there, committee? Are you all okay with this?
I would take it we would probably be only discussing the Blackman Middle and the Smyrna primary additions.
Yes, sir, I would think so.
For current consideration, because the rest could fluctuate a little bit, and then we'll have a little bit more time to think on the others.
A vote next month, you would appreciate that?
We're possible because we've got to go to, of course, budget and the other process, and just try to get things started if we can.
Can we keep
Okay,
this?
that's,
Yes.
Okay.
let's attempt to, Ms. Cook, I'm sorry.
I just want us to do it without being pushed. And I think the sooner that we can come up with some ideas and thoughts and so forth, it would be good. Because I know a lot of times they have, the school board has sent it up here. We got to make a decision tonight because since we got a couple of months, let's do it and not be pushed.
I just have one last question that I thought of. Since security is just in the forefront of everybody's mind right now, you and the administrators at David Urey are comfortable with the time frame that you've offered us here? You don't feel like that needs to be put into this year's?
I mean, we'd like to move it up, but we need to do it as a package. Our first priority was to try to get seats,
Okay.
just to be honest with you. So that's what we're looking at first, is some seats and a way to deal with the, it's been that we've had it up there before, but we're as comfortable as we can with the budget constraints I think we got to look at.
If I might, and I hate to say this again, but in order, I think this is a fair statement to make. In order to make a decision after 30 days of doing some research and questions and next time and whatever, it would really help us if we've got some kind of idea about opening Stewart's Creek and the funding. You knew that was coming, Mr. Sandvik. And at least, and I'm just talking from Jeff Jordan's standpoint, we've got to do that, obviously. And I don't want to sit up here and cry, but we have funding issues, obviously, that don't involve schools. And the 1.2 million on the SROs is part of it does involve schools, obviously, but that's a separate issue. And we have some other things, as you all are aware. And we've got to open Stewart's Creek High School, in my judgment, in August of this year, without question. And it's going to take $4+ million to do that. So, Mr. Standing, I hope you have that in your trunk of your car or somewhere.
After Elaine sends me her email telling me everything's balanced for January, I can do some serious looking at that. I've looked at December numbers, obviously.
Well, that would sure help us.
Each month that passes, we can give better numbers.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you understand. I don't believe this committee is going to want to commit to, and I'm not saying we will or will not anyway. I don't know, but I'm just saying that we're going to have some kind of assurance there that we're in good shape there, I would think. Sir?
We'd like a quid pro quo.
If there are no further questions for Director Odom or his two cohorts here, if you all would just kind of stay with us just a second, because I got one other thing I need to tell you, Director Odom. Committee, we okay to move on the agenda? Okay. Just want to remind you about the May meeting of the Health and Education Committee. Now is Tuesday, May 21st, and that was as you know, response to the finance director and the school board as to where the dates fell this time. That is not our usual meeting night, May 21st, and you've had plenty of notice on that. And I'll move on to the next thing. And I'll just do this alone, I guess. Director Odom, we had a meeting, the steering did with the legislators earlier this month, and one thing that came up at that meeting was that, and it was very mild. Okay, no one was accusing anybody of anything, but a couple of legislators were concerned that we still might possibly be admitting students and we're not checking as well as we might. That was said publicly. Okay, and I'm hoping that that's not the case.
If we know about it,
yeah,
we'll send them back or track it down. I mean, we've had people traveling to other counties following people home.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you, we do not knowingly do that.
And you're talking about admitting students from other counties.
Right. We do not admit them if we know at the front end. If they ask, can we pay tuition? No, you cannot pay tuition. We don't do that. Occasionally, we'll take somebody at this year that moves to, if they're down in Laverne, moves to Davidson County, can I finish out the year? We sometimes, in the interest of the student, will say you can finish out the year or something like that, but you'll be expected to enroll next year where you reside. And again, we're about kids and learning too, and so you have to put that piece in there. But not knowingly do we accept it.
I did assure them that we had done plenty of work on this previous, but it had been a year or two since we'd done anything. And of course, Mr. Farley took a leadership position there, and he's on the steering committee. But anyway, I promised to ask you, if you would, to just send a letter to each principal, and we do have some new principals since we went through this, and just giving them the guidelines for admitting a new student and checking water bills and things of that nature, whatever that they do. And I would appreciate that. And committee, I appreciate your time letting me bring that up.
But they say, a lot of times those in Laverne say, well, I'm staying with my grandmother, I'm doing this, or I'm just over here for a while.
We make them get custody. I mean, we have people that will go up and actually give temporary custody to a relative where you have that situation. Now, what trumps everything else is the Federal Homeless Act. Yeah. So, literally, you can't control that. I mean, you have to deal with that. If they're a homeless student and they come to stay with another relative, you have to take them even though the parent might be somewhere else or incarcerated or that sort of thing. Or if DCS places them with somebody, I mean, you have to do that.
Well, we just go back and just remind you of the figure that you just gave us, and it costs $8,000 a year if we admit a student from such and such a county, and that's my concern, and I think that was his concern.
If people will give us names, I'll guarantee you we'll go check. People will call in every once in a while. I know so and so is not living there. Please give us who you're talking about and a name. You know, narrow this down amongst our 40,000 students a little bit for us, and we'll do something about it.
And along those lines, there was some discussion, I want to say not this past year, budget year, but the year before, about verifying wheel tax and verifying registration. Because I know I volunteer at my son's school on registration day, and not this past school year, not this past August, but the one before, we were told we had to check a utility bill and we had to verify wheel tax. They had to bring in their car registration. That wasn't the case this year. So is that anything that you instruct them to do, or
no? We didn't make a change. I don't know for sure on the wheel tax, because I think we're stopping the sticker.
Right.
It's been so long since, what makes it so difficult and why some people call us in, how long has it been since Tennessee has changed the license plate? So people within the I don't know how many years we've been moved from Cannon County or Wilson County or something into Rutherford County, that little tag that says Cannon or Wilson is still at the bottom of the tag, but they can be a legitimate person in Rutherford County. So it gets straightened out better when the state used to about every 3 years do new tags.
Well, and we didn't have them bring in tags. I mean, they just brought in their registration slip, and if your car is registered and you've renewed your tags in Rutherford County, you have that.
And you paid the wheel tax.
And you've obviously paid the wheel tax because you've got your current registration. So I think that's a worthwhile thing, just to make sure people aren't going out of county sending their kids here, because I know it's a little bit of money, but it adds up. I
understand.
Committee, anything else? Any other new business? Let's just go into new business here, which I guess that was. If we're about to adjourn. Warning. Mr. Ash, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate the use of Central Magnet School tonight. Delight to be back here. We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.